A father vanished without a trace on a warm July evening. 20 years later, his son opened the door to a detective with a smile. Buried beneath their home was a truth colder than the grave, and what rose from the basement was never meant to be found. It was a quiet Sunday morning in suburban Ohio. Mist hung low over the faded rooftops of Maplewood Drive. Birds chirped as if the world had never known violence. But inside house number 48, the past stirred. Detective Maria Ellison pulled up in an unmarked sedan. She stepped out slowly, eyeing the cracked walkway and rusted mailbox. A faded welcome mat still lay at the threshold, sun-bleached, but intact. The house had been abandoned for years. The case file under her arm was worn and heavy. Inside were 15 photographs, 4 taped interviews, and 1 bloodstained shirt. All that remained of Harold Whitmore, missing since 2003. He was last seen in this very home, hosting a 4th of July barbecue, smiling in grainy camcorder footage, flipping burgers beside his then 17-year-old son, Derek. Neighbors recalled hearing fireworks that night. They mistook the scream for celebration. No body, no crime scene, no answers. For 2 decades, the case sat cold, until a storm drain cleaning crew found something strange beneath the cul-de-sac, a rusted revolver. Serial number filed off. But inside, skin flakes, fossilized with time. The DNA matched Harold. And something else. Another profile. A familial link. Detective Ellison looked through the windshield, heart pounding. The man she was here to arrest had never left town. Derek Whitmore, now 39. A respected youth counselor. Father of 2. She knocked on the door. The wood echoed like a drumbeat. Footsteps approached slowly, each one heavier than the last. The door opened. Derek stood in the frame. Tall, calm, but his eyes betrayed him. Just for a second, she showed her badge. His pupils dilated. Derek Whitmore, she said, you are under arrest for the murder of your father, Harold Whitmore. Silence. A lawnmower roared to life down the street. Children laughed in the distance. But on that doorstep, time stopped. He did not ask why. He did not protest. Instead, he stepped back, allowing her inside. The living room smelled faintly of pine cleaner and something else. Something metallic, old. On the mantel was a photograph. Father and son, July 4th, 2003. Both smiling, one of them already dead. She cuffed him. He looked at the photo, then whispered just one word. Finally. The hairs on her arm stood up. Something in his tone, relief, satisfaction. The basement door creaked open, unprompted, as if pushed by a breeze that did not exist. She stared at the darkness below. Her hand reached for her holster. A soft drip echoed from beneath the stays. Then came the sound, a slow, rhythmic thud, like a heartbeat, or a shovel hitting dirt. She stepped toward the basement. Each footfall was a choice. Each creak of the wooden floor sounded louder than the last. Derek said nothing, but his eyes followed her like shadows. The air grew colder near the basement door. A damp, earthy smell wafted up, thick, musty, and unmistakable. It was a scent of undisturbed time, of something buried. Detective Ellison gripped the flashlight clipped to her belt. She flicked it on. The beam sliced through the darkness. Dust floated like ash in the narrow cone of light. Her free hand hovered above her weapon. She took the first step down. It groaned under her weight. Behind her, Derek exhaled, slow, deliberate. Not fear, not regret, almost anticipation. The concrete steps descended into a low-ceilinged basement. Cinder-block walls sweated moisture. Shelves lined the walls, filled with paint cans, broken tools, and untouched memories. Then she saw it. In the far corner, a wooden hatch, partially obscured by an old mattress and sheets of warped plywood. The thud continued, soft, steady, coming from beneath that hatch. She moved closer. The light quivered in her hand. The plywood groaned as she pulled it away. The hatch was locked with an iron latch, now rusted and brittle. She pried it open. The noise stopped. Silence roared in her ears. Her breath caught. She shone the flashlight down the narrow shaft. It was not a crawl space. It was a pit, about 4 feet deep. And inside, torn plastic tops, clumps of matted hair, a leather belt with a broken buckle, and a single pristine sneaker. Bright red, too small for an adult. Ellison's throat tightened. Her voice cracked when she called upstairs. "Derek, who else is down here?" No answer, only the sound of footsteps, retreating now. Upstairs. Away. She rushed back up. But the living room was empty. The front door stood wide open. The photograph on the mantel, gone. Outside, the street was still. The sun had dipped behind the trees, casting long, jagged shadows. Derek was nowhere in sight. She called for backup, voice trembling. But inside, her mind screamed louder than the siren, because she had seen something else. In the pit, just before she turned away, a second photograph, partially buried beneath dirt and bone. Another father, another son, and the boy in that photo. He was not Derek. He was someone else entirely. Someone who had been missing since 1998, from a town 2 states away. A case never connected. Until now. She lowered her flashlight. Her hands shook. This was no isolated crime. It was a pattern, carefully hidden. And Derek Whitmore, he was not just a killer. He might be something worse. The basement hatch creaked again, but she had not touched it. From below, the thud returned, faster this time, and louder. She spun around, heart thudding in sync with the sound. The hatch was still open, but now the thuds were not just sounds. They were movements. Something was rising. Her flashlight beam trembled across the pit. Shadows twisted and writhed across the basement walls. Then a shape emerged, not whole, but human. A hand, pale, caked in soil, clutching the edge of the hatch. Ellison stumbled backward. Her boot scraped across the concrete. She drew her weapon. "Show me your hands," she shouted, voice sharp and cracking. The hand froze. Then, slowly, another emerged beside it. The figure dragged itself upward, inch by inch. It was a boy, barely 13, eyes sunken, skin ghost white, hair clinging wet to his scalp. He blinked into the light. Terrified, alive, she dropped to her knees. "What is your name?" The boy trembled, lips split from dryness. He whispered something she could barely hear. "Evan." She froze. The name hit her like a bolt of ice. Evan Granger, reported missing in 2021. Vanished on his way home from school. Presumed dead. Her voice cracked as she reached for her radio. "This is Detective Ellison. I have a living victim. I repeat, alive. Send immediate medical." Her breath caught again, because the boy looked past her, eyes wide with terror. "Where is he?" Evan rasped. "He said he would come back." Ellison toned. The basement stairs were empty, but the door at the top was closing, not slamming, just gently, slowly swinging shut, as if pushed by a hand that did not want to be seen. She ran, 3 steps at a time, boots hammering wood, burst into the hallway. Nothing. No Derek. No sound. Only the photograph now pinned to the front door. A new one. This time, just Derek. Alone. Grinning. Behind him, just barely visible in the blurred background, the shape of a second pit. Another location. Another basement. Another victim. Ellison's knees buckled. She clutched the doorframe to stay upright. Her ears were filled with static now. Her breath fogged the glass. Because in the bottom corner of the photo, scrawled in thick black ink, were 5 chilling words. "This is not the end." A car engine revved down the street. Then tires squealed, and the sound vanished into the night. Ellison burst out the front door, gun still in hand. The sky was now charcoal gray, the last light fading behind the rooftops. She scanned the street. Taillights. A black SUV, speeding toward the main road, too far to chase on foot. She called it in. Suspect fleeing eastbound on Willow Creek. Black SUV. Plate unknown. Proceeding alone. I repeat, proceeding alone. Her voice was steadier than her hands. Inside, adrenaline burned like fire. Backup would take at least 6 minutes. She had maybe 3. Behind her, paramedics swarmed the basement. She heard them shouting, vitals, pressure, oxygen. Evan was alive, but barely. She wanted to stay, to protect him. but something deeper pulled her forward. She turned back toward the photograph, ran her finger across the glossy surface. The background was grainy but familiar. That barn. She had seen it before. Old case #147-9B. The Brantley farm. Abandoned. Condemned. Where a teenage girl had vanished in 2014. Where blood was found, but no body. Case ruled non-conclusive. Buried. Forgotten. Until now. She sprinted to her car. Inside, the engine roared to life. Her fingers flew over the GPS. Brantley Farm. 14 minutes away. She turned on the sirens. Red and blue light split the shadows like knives. As she drove, she replayed every moment. Derek's calm expression. His word, finally. The basement. The pit. The photo. The promise. This is not the end. What was it then? The beginning? Her tires skidded across gravel as she turned onto a forgotten country road. Trees closing from both sides like dark curtains. The Brantley farmhouse loomed in the distance, a black shape against a darker sky. She killed the sirens. The night fell silent again. No crickets. No wind. Not even her heartbeat. Only pressure. Like standing in the eye of a storm that had not hit yet. She approached the front gate. It hung open. Rust flakes drifted to the ground as it swayed. A strange scent floated through the air, sweet, metallic, rutting. She drew her weapon again, checked the safety, clicked on her flashlight. A single set of tire tracks led into the barn. Fresh. She stepped forward, boots crunching gravel. The barn doors were ajar. A soft, flickering light came from inside. She pushed the doors open. One hinge squealed. The flashlight beam swept across hay bales, splintered tools, rusted hooks. Then stopped. A mattress. On the floor. And on it, another photo, pinned with a knife. This one was of her. Detective Maria Ellison. Taken from behind. Earlier that day. Standing at the Whitmore crime scene. Looking down at the hatch. She staggered back. Her breath caught in her throat. He had been watching. Following. There was a sound behind her. Soft. Wet. Like something sliding across the dirt. She turned. And froze. Hanging from the ceiling beam above her, swinging gently like a pendulum, was a red shoelace, still tied in a perfect loop. And below it, the unmistakable impression of a small body, recently removed. The floor beneath her feet groaned. And then, a whisper, so close it tickled her ear. I saved the best for last. She spun around, flashlight jerking wildly through the dark. Nobody. Only shadows clinging to beams like cobwebs. The whisper echoed again, from a different corner. I knew you'd come. Her breath trembled. Finger curled tight on the trigger. She scanned every corner. Nothing moved, but the air felt wrong. Charged. Electric. Alive. The barn was too quiet. Too still. Not even her own heartbeat felt like her own anymore. She stepped toward the mattress. The knife pinning her photo gleamed in the beam of her light. A hunting blade. New. Clean. Too clean. Beneath the photo lay a small, square cassette tape, labeled in red ink. Play me, Maria. Her hand shook as she picked it up. It was warm. Suddenly, her radio crackled. Detective Ellison, do you copy? Backup is en route. ETA 5 minutes. She pressed the button, eyes still locked on the cassette. Copy. Entering barn at Brantley Farm. Suspect may still be on site. Static answered her. Then, faintly, another voice cut in. His watching. She froze. That voice did not belong to dispatch. She backed toward the entrance, only to hear the barn doors slam shut behind her. The flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed her. She dropped to one knee, pulled a backup penlight from her boot, clicked it on. It cast a narrow beam, and caught something on the far wall. A message, painted in something dark and streaky. You chase a monster into his home. She stepped back, straight into something behind her. She whipped around. Nothing there, but a faint warmth lingered near her neck. Light breath. Then the barn's floor creaked. From the loft above, she pointed the light up. A figure stood there, tall, still, A mask of her own face, printed, lifeless, stared down at her. The figure tilted its head, then slowly raised an object into the light. A phone. Recording. Red light blinking. Capturing everything. She stepped backward again, heart hammering. "I know who you are," she shouted. But her voice cracked. It sounded like a plea. The figure said nothing. Then it dropped the phone. It shattered at her feet. The loft above emptied. Silence again, until a low rumble echoed beneath the barn floor. A motor? A door? She turned. The mattress. It was gone. In its place. A trapdoor, wide open. A black hole in the earth. From it rose a metallic clatter. Chains. And something dragging itself up from the dark. Ellison raised her gun. Light pointed dead center. Mouth dry. Fingers steady. But what emerged was not Derek. It was something else. Something wearing Derek's face. Sewn tight over another skull. And it was smiling. The thing that rose from the trapdoor didn't move like a man. Its joints cracked with every step, but it never flinched. The skin mask stretched tight across its cheekbones, eyes too wide, too empty. No breath, no emotion, just a grin carved into stillness. Ellison's flashlight shook in her grip. Her mind screamed of fire, but her hands would not listen. The thing tilted its head. Then it spoke, not in Derek's voice. Something deeper, like gravel dragged across metal. "You are exactly where I want you." Ellison squeezed the trigger. One shot, then two. The flashes lit up the barn in sharp, violent bursts. The creature staggered, but did not fall. Black fluid oozed from beneath the mask. Thick, sticky, wrong. It kept coming. Behind her, the barn's floorboard began to vibrate. A low hum, like a generator coming to life. The ground beneath her boots was heating up. She stepped back toward the doors, tried them, locked, bolted from outside. The creature lunged. She rolled to the side, crashing into an old hay bale. Her flashlight spun across the floor. The beam caught something metal in the corner. A lever, worn, rusted, painted red. Above it, smeared in the same black substance, were 3 chilling words. "Open the nest." She scrambled toward it. Behind her, claws scraped wood. She pulled the lever. The floor groaned, then split. Across the barn, trapdoors began to open, one after another. Hinges screeched like tortured screams. From the pits below, shapes began to rise. Figures, pale, silent, eyes sewn shut, mouths torn open. Dozens of them. Children, teenagers, and some, impossibly, still moving. She staggered back, chest heaving, vision swimming. They filled the barn in seconds, surrounding the masked creature. It turned, let out a soundless snarl, and charged into the sea of broken bodies. Ellison saw her chance. She ran, back to the doors, threw herself against them. Still locked, she looked up. There, one high window, shattered long ago, her only exit. She hurled a crate beneath it, climbed, cutting her hands on rusted nails and splintered wood. Below her, the screaming started, not just from the victims, from him, from whatever he was, and something else. A sound not human, a sound not meant to be heard. She reached the window, climbed through, fell 6 feet to the earth, hit hard, dirt in her mouth, blood in her ears. She forced herself up, ran toward her car. Behind her, the barn shuddered, groaned, then lit up from within, not with flame, with a pulsing red light, like a heartbeat, alive. As she reached the car door, she looked back one last time, and in the top window of the barn, in the same loft where it all began, stood Derek, not wearing a mask, not bleeding, just smiling, holding a cassette, labeled, Tape 2, Your Town. Detective Maria Ellison stared up at the barn window. Derek's silhouette stood motionless. The flickering red glow behind him pulsed like a heartbeat. He lifted the cassette, holding it between 2 fingers like a final threat. But he did not move. He just watched, and smiled. Maria climbed into her car, hands trembling as she turned the key. The engine roared to life. She radioed in firm, focused, every syllable carved with urgency. This is Ellison. Brantley Farm is a crime scene. I have multiple victims, living and deceased. Suspect is present, requesting immediate tactical support. Now, within 12 minutes, the silence shattered. A convoy of cruisers and black tactical vans thundered down the Date Road. Red and blue lights tore through the darkness. Officers surrounded the barn, weapons drawn. A negotiator took the lead, but Derek never responded. When they stormed the building, they found it empty. No masked creature, no Derek, no victims. Only the smell of rotten blood and dozens of shallow graves, some freshly dug. In the center of the barn, beneath a single hanging light bulb, lay the cassette. Tape 2, Your Town. They played it. It contained no voice. Just one long, uninterrupted sound. A child crying. Faint. Endless. For weeks, the investigation deepened. FBI forensic units unearthed bones of at least 27 individuals, some missing for over 2 decades. Boys, girls, even one adult male, later identified as Harold Whitmore, all linked to one man, Derek Whitmore. But Derek had vanished without a trace. Until 3 months later, Ellison received a package. No return address. Inside, photographs. Victims, alive, sitting in a plain, windowless room. Pale, silent, but breathing. One of them was Evan. A handwritten note was tucked inside. Not all monsters kill. Some keep. DNA confirmed it. 5 children believed dead were alive. Traumatized, malnourished, but recoverable. Ellison knew what it meant. He had been operating for years. A collector, a manipulator, a man who turned pain into power. They never found the facility, never found Derek, but the survivors told stories. Of masks, of tapes, of a man who always smiled but never spoke, and always said the same thing before disappearing. You only see what I let you see. Detective Ellison left the force soon after. She wrote a report over 500 pages. Not one sentence could explain why a son would murder his father, or why he would keep some children alive and bury others. But in her final paragraph, she wrote this: "The face of evil is not always a face of rage. Sometimes it is calm, charming, smiling. Sometimes evil grows quietly inside the people we trust, and by the time we hear it knocking, it is already inside our homes." She ended with a warning. Do not chase monsters into the dark unless you are ready to see yourself in the mirror they leave behind.